Poilievre shreds Carney's claims. Liberals stunned after Bombshell contract scandal uncovered. In a dramatic session on Parliament Hill, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre methodically dismantled Prime Minister Mark Carney's economic message. Carney had just unveiled his ambitious One Canadian Economy plan, promising to cut red tape, spur clean infrastructure projects, and supercharge job creation. But Poilievre countered that under Carney's watch, regulations have become so burdensome that only politically connected firms can move projects forward, leaving most Canadians stuck in bureaucratic limbo. Poilievre highlighted that the plan lacks substance, stating that the existing regulations are suffocating small businesses, while large corporations with ties to the government are thriving. The tension reached a crescendo when Poilievre dropped a bombshell. He exposed that GC Strategies, the consulting firm responsible for the controversial ArriveCAN app, has been barred from all federal contracts for 7 years. Conservative MP Larry Brock revealed details showing the company received over $19 million through direct, non-competitive awards despite delivering substandard work. This revelation illustrated Poilievre's core claim that insiders are raking in taxpayer-funded contracts with zero accountability. Poilievre emphasized that the government's lack of transparency and accountability has led to a lack of trust in institutions, which is detrimental to the country's economic growth. Carney's polished presentation of national renewal began to unravel as MPs absorbed the implications. Critics pointed out that while Carney claimed to champion growth and innovation, he was simultaneously allowing insider firms to bypass standard procurement rules, effectively dismantling his own regulatory narrative. The optics were brutal, the government preaching openness while protecting its cronies through unreviewed contracts. Poilievre stressed that the government's actions are contradictory, and it's essential to hold the government accountable for its actions. This scandal isn't just about money, it's about trust. Canadians are facing a broken housing market, overcrowded hospitals, and decaying infrastructure. They're asking, if the rules are so rigid that private builders struggle, why are they waived for insiders who deliver subpar results? Carney's pledge to streamline regulations fell flat against the ArriveCAN saga, symbolizing systemic failure to deliver for everyday Canadians while protecting elite interests. Poilievre emphasized that the government's inability to manage contracts and budgets honestly has led to a broader governance crisis. He stated that the government's actions are detrimental to the country's economic growth and the people's trust in the institutions. Further denting the Liberals' credibility, Senate auditors flagged what they termed creative accounting in Carney's budget. Revenue projections were shifted between capital and operating expenses to mask deficits, reinforcing suspicions that the government prioritizes optics over honesty. Provincial governments echoed these concerns, warning that such fiscal arrangements undermine confidence in Ottawa's stewardship. Poilievre emphasized that the government's lack of transparency and accountability has led to a lack of trust in the institutions. Poilievre has seized on these failures, issuing a policy roadmap centered on deregulation and transparency. He proposes eliminating Bill C-69, which currently suffocates resource and pipeline projects in red tape. He also advocates scrapping industrial carbon taxes that cripple domestic manufacturing and fast-tracking shovel-ready initiatives to revive construction and job creation. His argument: Canada needs common-sense reforms, not insider contracts and legislative theater. Poilievre emphasized that the government's actions are detrimental to the country's economic growth and the people's trust in the institutions. Carney, sensing the political threat, has pivoted toward energy sector appeals. He's pitched a grand bargain combining pipeline support with carbon capture investments, framing it as a balanced environmental, economic vision. But critics argue it feels reactionary, designed to counter the scandal rather than offer long-term economic leadership. Poilievre emphasized that the government's actions are contradictory, and it's essential to hold the government accountable for its actions. Meanwhile, the ArriveCAN contract has become emblematic of deeper procurement dysfunction. A close review shows the government fast-tracked contracts during the pandemic without competitive bids, authorized large payments for half-complete digital platforms, and failed to hold any executives accountable. This level of disregard for due process undermines Ottawa's ability to manage taxpayer resources responsibly. Poilievre emphasized that the government's inability to manage contracts and budgets honestly has led to a broader governance crisis. This political flashpoint lays bare a broader governance crisis. If the Liberals cannot vet contractors or manage budgets honestly, how can they claim to steer the country forward? Poilievre's attack, grounded in hard data and real-world examples, resonates because it exposes the disconnect between Carney's high-minded rhetoric and the messy reality behind the scenes. Poilievre emphasized that the government's actions are detrimental to the country's economic growth and the people's trust in the institutions. Public response has been swift. Polls show growing disenchantment with Carney's team, especially among swing voters frustrated by economic stagnation and rising living costs. Conservatives are gaining traction by offering a clear message: obey the rules, build the future, stop protecting insiders. Whether that message leads to policy reform or political change depends on Ottawa's next moves. Poilievre emphasized that the government's actions are detrimental to the country's economic growth and the people's trust in the institutions. Behind closed doors, senior Liberals are reported to be scrambling to contain the fallout. Carney loyalists fear the ArriveCAN scandal may poison his entire economic agenda. There's talk of launching contract reviews, tightening procurement processes, and even reversing parts of Bill C-69. But political insiders caution that unless meaningful reforms accompany those gestures, the damage may already be done. Poilievre emphasized that the government's actions are detrimental to the country's economic growth and the people's trust in the institutions. Poilievre remains relentless. He has demanded public release of all ArriveCAN procurement documents, legislative inquiries into GC strategies, and binding consequences for vendors found responsible. His closing message: Canadians shouldn't have to wonder who gets special treatment. If Carney's Liberals can't play by their own rules, they lose the right to set them.